Hello and welcome to the NDLEA Twitter space. We are honored to have you all here today. This weekly broadcast, held every Friday at 3 p.m. on our official Twitter account, serves to raise awareness on drug-related issues and encourage interaction between the public and Nigeria's leading anti-narcotic agency, NDLEA. At this point, let me introduce the host and, of course, the Director of Media and Advocacy at the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, Mr. Femi Baba Femi. You are welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Mahmoud. A very good afternoon to all of us, wherever we're listening from. And for those that are still in the morning where they are, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us. And for those that are already past noon, a good evening to you over there. Thank you for being part of our conversation. Again, this is NDLA Open Forum on Twitter Space, which is also streamed on our handles at NDLA01 on Facebook, as well as on our YouTube and Instagram handles. Thank you for keeping faith with us. And I like to say, like Mahmoud rightly observed, or like Mahmoud said, that this is a platform where we share knowledge about drug abuse and the inherent dangers. It is a means for us to let you know what we're doing to curb the menace of substance abuse and illicit drug trafficking, as well as getting your feedbacks on, some of all the things we're doing so that we can improve on our deliverables. Today we would not waste time because I know we have someone who is very vibrant, somebody who is very passionate about this, leading the conversation. So I would, in a short while from now, introduce him and hand over the microphone to him. But before I do that, let me quickly remind us about the NDLA Call Center, which is an initiative by the agency to bridge the gap between those who are struggling with drug abuse and the help they really need. And that is a help center where we have quite a lot of mental health experts, professionals, psychologists, counselors, psychotherapists, psychiatric doctors, and all of them working 24/7, even though in shifts. That is, at any point in time, you have all of these experts, a team of these experts on duty to attend to you, pick your calls from wherever you may be across the country. And the number to call in case you need help, in case you want to find out about how to get help for a relation or a friend of yours, the number to call is 0800 10 20 30 40. I come again, 0800 10 20 30 40. We have our experts, our professionals who are waiting for you. I'll tell you, credit is not a barrier. It's a toll-free helpline. You don't need to have credit. All you need to do is to dial the number and they will speak to you, will bear the cost for you. Beyond that, this is also a very, very language friendly center where, apart from our experts being able to speak to you in English or even Pidgin, they can also speak to you in any of the major three major languages, that is Hausa, Yoruba, Igbo. So you have no reason not to seek help. This one, they would deal with you. I mean, they would relate with you with utmost confidentiality. That you don't have the fear of stigmatization and you don't have the fear of being judged by anybody. Thank you for that. And straight, because we need to really have a lot of conversation today. Last week we did have a very awesome one with a very good expert, somebody who did an awesome job in giving us quite a lot of insights into the Gen Z and the problem of drug abuse. I'm talking of Dr. Oluwatosin Adekeye, who is a clinical psychologist at the Ahmadu Bello University Teaching Hospital, Shikazaria, Kaduna State. This he indeed gave us quite a lot of insights. And today, beyond who the Gen Z, who they are, beyond the problem of, the whole understanding about drugs and the problem of drug abuse. Today, we're trying to see how we can also get our guests today to actually address how to access help. How do we get help we have quite a lot of all of that we've been doing at our level at the NDLEA, but then we need him to speak from his own perspective, from his own experience, from his own knowledge as somebody who is based in the UK. And so today we'll be addressing the issue Gen Z, drug abuse, and how to get help. I would like to let us know that what we are doing is basically to actually focus on this group of young people who are mostly on this space on the internet, so that we can engage them and then have their feelings and also assist, especially those that are struggling with this scourge. And so today we'll be having Dr. Onyedikachi Naga, a doctor licensed to practice medicine in Nigeria and in the UK. He is currently actually in the UK on psychiatry residency training in Wales, United Kingdom. His areas of interest include public health advocacy, mental health promotion, and indeed medical education. I'm sure you'll give it to us that we didn't miss it. That is, I've listened to him make contributions on the platform, and today, going beyond him making contributions, we actually need to hear from him to get a share of his experience, knowledge about all of this. He is also the founder of the Huddle Africa Initiative, a community of individuals united in the fight against stigma and discrimination towards persons living with some stigmatizable health conditions. Dr. Kachi is also a public speaker, so I'm sure a lot of us who are listening to him, you will give that to him. You agree with me. I've listened to him, so I know definitely is one who has who speaks very fluently and smoothly, and is equally an aspiring medical missionary who spends his spare time on community and youth development. At this point, it is my pleasure to welcome Dr. Kashi to invite him to unmute himself, and let's listen to him for the next 30-40 minutes. Thereafter, we would be interrogating his presentation and also making our own contributions. Thank you, Dr. Kashi. Please, let's hear from you.
Hello and good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, Mr. Babafemi. I want to appreciate Mr. Babafemi, Mr. Mahmoud, and all the other members of the NDLEA team that have reached out to me. And I think it's a huge privilege to be sharing my own thoughts, my own two cents, about this very, very, very important topic on drug abuse. And I'm not going to, I think 2 weeks ago in the series, it was Professor Jida who took us through a very good journey. Last week I wasn't present, but I learned it was also a very good experience by the clinical psychologist. I suspect they must have set very, very high standards, but I'm just going to try to, anchor an interactive session and just help us, understand this reality, and most importantly, how can we get help? For me, I think why I'm asking this question about how we can get help is that if we all look, introspectively, we would see that each and every member of this space, each and every person on this space now, is either you've had problems or you have somebody who who is close to you, a friend, a neighbor, a family member, who has had problems with drug use. And of course, everyone wants to know, how can we get help for ourselves or for this individual? And that's going to be the focus of my discussion today. I'm going to try as much as possible to just use very, very basic and layman's descriptions and expressions, so that not to bore us and not to complicate issues. Now, I want to start this conversation, lay a background. The first thing that came to my mind when I saw this conversation is drug abuse a criminal justice problem, or is it a medical problem? Is drug abuse a criminal justice problem, or is it a medical problem? Is it a security problem, or is it a public health problem? And depending on what angle you're viewing this problem from, it would actually shape what answer you're going to give. It's a popular saying that to a carpenter, the solution to every problem is the hammer. The carpenter sees the solution to every problem as the hammer. So as a medical professional, as a mental health professional, I may look at the problem of drug abuse as primarily a medical or a public health problem. On the other hand, drug enforcement agents may look at it primarily as a security or criminal justice problem. But in the end, if you are being very pragmatic and very realistic, I think the answer actually lies in the middle. It is actually both a medical problem, both a public health problem, as well as a criminal justice and security problem. I think we've highlighted most of this, in previous discussions. Now, I will now go to another. I won't take too much time on background because that's not the focus, but I'll just breeze through some concept like I thought about when I was thinking about this topic. Another concept is classification of drugs. I'm not quite sure if by classification, I mean classification in terms of the criminal justice system. In various parts of the world, drugs are classified as, are put into different classes based on how dangerous they are, how bad their effects are, how much of a problem it is, and they class them into different categories. Here in the UK, for example, they popularly class, illicit drugs into class A, class B, and class C commonly. So class A would get substances in the range of heroin to cocaine to ecstasy to LSD and to morphine. In class B, we have substances like cannabis, amphetamines, ketamine, and codeine, and the rest of them. In class C, we have benzodiazepines, tramadol, and the rest of them. And in this part of the world, classing these drugs into these various categories also determines what penalties they get. For example, if you're caught in possession of a class A, class B, or class C drugs, if you're caught in possession of these drugs, then the consequences are the penalties are different based on what class, and also if your class supply of producing them, the consequences are also different. So that's the basis for classification. But in terms of public health concern, this classification system may not be very relevant. I just want to highlight it. Now, for us, what are the problems? For you to say individuals need to get help. I've got a drug use problem and I need to get help. What actually is the drug use problem? So I'll just broadly say, broadly you can actually describe the drug use problems or substance use problem because it's beyond drugs. We need to understand that it's beyond drugs. A lot of people are actually addicted to, things that we usually, that are common in the society and not necessarily drugs. Some people actually get, try to inhale fumes from sockaway pits. Some people actually inhale, nail polish, things that are not classed as drugs, but they are substances that are prone to be abused in our communities. So, on one hand, we have substance use problem, where people have they have persistent use of drugs despite the negative consequences. So I'm currently using these particular substances and it's causing me harm both in my physical health, my mental health, my relationships, and social situation, but I can't really help it. Despite the negative consequences, I'm still persisting in the use of drugs. So broadly, we just describe those as substance use disorders generally. And on the other hand, we have substance-induced disorders. So, for example, for some people, due to the use of drugs, they may develop some physical or psychological complications from use of drugs. For example, some people get acute intoxication. Some people get physical health problems. Some people get psychosis or schizophrenia, what people call madness, from use of these drugs. So what will be offered for individual will depend on, what actually is the problem, in relation to use of these substances. And like we all know, I know it's been overflogged, it's been overemphasized. There are a lot of physical, psychological, and social complications from use of drugs. I commonly say, with drugs, you use, you lose. You use, you lose. You know, it's one part, it's one story that a lot of people don't speak about. And I think when we get to a stage in Nigeria where, you know, stigma is reduced such that people who are recovering or have recovered from use of drugs are freer to describe their experiences, and they give you insights into their worlds, actually what they've been through, I think it will actually reduce the prevalence of use of drugs, because people will actually have a mental picture of what they are going into before they actually get into it. You know, so for example, you know, you have people who have acute intoxication. Some people just die from acute intoxication. Some people actually use substances that are mixed with that are adulterated. So for example, you know, people are addicted to substances, and these substances are not very cheap. Some of them are not very cheap. So these people who supply or produce them actually infuse other impurities into these substances, and because this individual, you know, is an underworld trade. So nobody, if for example, I go and buy a substance on the street and somebody sells me a fake or adulterated substance, I won't go to the police and go and report and say, hey, Mr. J, sell me this thing on a fake one, no, come let me arrest them. The police will first arrest me first before they go and pick up the other person. So there's high risk of impurity and adulteration, and people actually die from acute intoxication, from overdose, from from poisoning and the rest of them. You know, people can get nasal damage from inhaling some of these substances. You know, people who inject could get, you know, blood-borne infections. You know, because they could share needles and all. You know, these substances could damage lungs, could damage the brain, it could damage the kidney, it could damage all parts of the body. People could get accident, you know, from you know, after using these substances, and of course you try to drive yourself back home, or you're crossing the road. You could be involved in an accident because you're not very, you know, it affects your thinking, it affects your cognition, your concentration, and you could be involved in accidents. You know, people could get STDs, unwanted pregnancies. I mean, eventually people could die. You know, so the consequences of these are far-reaching. There are far-reaching consequences of these substances. So, you know, it cannot be overemphasized. You know, about what the consequences of these substances are. Another thing I want to lay as a background before I just go into the main cause of our discussion is, why exactly do young people use substances? Why exactly? Because if we're able to understand why young people use substances, then we're able to tailor specific interventions, you know, to help reduce the crave for substances, to help reduce the demand for these substances. You know, so we need to understand, you know, it's not the same. The reason why young people use substances here in the UK is different from the reason why young people use substances in Nigeria, for example. So if we're able to understand, I mean, in my locality, in my state, in my local government, why do young people use substances, then it can help us to develop more innovative solutions about why they use substances. You know, I worked in an inpatient rehabilitation center in Abuja about 18 months when I was still in Nigeria. And this is one of the reasons I identified my interaction with some of my friends. You know, before I continue, I would like to say that those 18 months I spent working in that inpatient rehab actually changed, you know, my perspective on a lot of things, and it actually fueled a lot of things I'm doing in my present day. So it helped me to see the world through their own eyes. You know, helped me to understand what they're actually seeing, you know, instead of just standing from the outside and just judging, you know, because one of the greatest problems we have as a people, and one of the greatest factors mitigating against this people getting help and getting support is stigma. You know, because, you know, as a people, we are very quick to judge. We are very quick to label people. Like I said in one of the previous spaces, I said when I was much younger, I actually stole some money from my mother's handbag. I think then it was in 1999 or something. So, but it was long time ago. I stole some money, and I think it was maybe 600 or 700 naira, which now is not big money, but then it was really huge money. And when I was reported, you know, that day was traumatic. I was beaten, nothing we did not do, you know. So if somebody who knew me then and saw everything that happened then but and chooses to label me as a thief. If he sees me today, he will not see me as an individual. He will not see me as a person who has made a mistake in the past. He will just see me as, oh, that, remember this guy, that boy will thief money when he's small, and that's what we as humans are prone to do. We are prone to label people. We are prone to give people tags, and it doesn't really help with supporting people in recovery. So one of the take homes for today is, if you know someone who has a substance use problem, one of the easiest way to help them get help is not to stigmatize. See, by saying do not stigmatize, I'm not saying you should condone use of drugs. Like, for example, when I interact with my patients, I don't tell them, no, it's not that bad, no, it's not that bad now. How bad? There are other bad things that people do now. It's not that bad. No. Not stigmatizing is telling them the truth, but telling them the truth from a place of non-judgment, from a place of willingness to help and to support them in their road to recovery. So it's important we say this. So why do young people actually abuse substances? These are some of the. I mean, the list is non-exhaustive, but these are some of the reasons I would have identified. One of the very, very common or popular reasons is actually social deprivation. Social deprivation is a very, very strong reason why young people, use or abuse substances. By social deprivation is a very big umbrella that houses a lot of things. So things ranging from unemployment to poverty to poor educational attainment to homelessness to poor social networks and family involvement. So whatever it is that actually makes an individual, feel deprived, feel that is dysfunctional or is not, the ideal member of society, then it will more likely make this individual prone to use of substances. But unfortunately, these factors are, and are not to a very large extent within our country as human beings. They have to do with government policies. They have to do with bigger organizations, and the rest of them. Another very important factor that makes young people prone to use or abuse substances is poorly developed coping and life skills. So a lot of young people, a lot of young individuals, when you're growing up, the truth is that for most of us who are adults or who are adolescents, we'll say, some people say adulthood na scam. Some people say, but if not so they tell us, I for no rush grow, I for just day from my papa and my mama house, they just shield myself from the presence of life. But when individuals begin to grow up and all the presence of life begin to stare them at the face, and they've not been trained, they've not been prepared for the world ahead. They don't have adaptive coping skills. I want us to understand that actually use of drugs is actually coping. A lot of people use drugs to cope. Now the problem with use of drugs is that whereas use of drugs is maladaptive coping skills. So it's maladaptive in the sense that, okay, it will give you what you want now, but it will take away what you need for life. Okay, I'm going through a lot of stress. I just need to relax. I just need to chill. I think get something will help me just chill now. And I get that stuff that chills me out for that time, for that few minutes or few hours max. But in the long term, in 2 years, 5 years, my life becomes totally different from what I ever envisaged. So that's the problem. So it's maladaptive in the sense that it solves a problem but creates 2 or 3 more problems. So we need to help young people develop life skills. We need to help young people develop coping skills. Okay, if I'm faced with this stuff, what are the things? What do I have? Help them develop emotional intelligence, resilience, so that they're able to cope with these emotional stressors, financial stressors, educational stressors. There are a lot of things that young people go through as they try to develop, moving from one to another. And then, the shield they have from older people is taken away from them at some point in their lives. That's another reason. Another reason is lack of accurate information. I mean, a lot of people get very, very wrong information provided by other individuals, provided by the internet, provided by media, provided by other sources. They get wrong information, and if you hear a lot of them, they'll tell you, if I knew, I would never have done this. If I knew, I would never have done this. If I knew. So, they knew that this thing will make you high. Oh, this thing will make you high. This thing will help you. It will just knock you out. This thing will give you this. Oh, this is for the big boys. It's for the cool guys. But they don't get the whole story. They don't get the full picture. So they get, one-sided information, and they're not able to make informed choices. So I think a lack of accurate information is one of the identified problems why young people actually abuse substances. Another is low self-esteem. As human beings, we are social animals, so we want to belong, we want to feel important, we want to feel loved, we want to feel special. And with people with low self-esteem, you're in a block, and somebody says but this one is for the cool guys. No, your head no go fit carry you know if you do this one because you want to feel important, you want to feel I'm a big boy, I can do this, come on, what's in there, I go fit carry am. Then you indulge in experimentation, and from experimentation to progress to harmful use. So low self-esteem is another aspect. So we need to help people build up their self-image, their self-esteem, their self-awareness. Who am I? As people grow up, you don't even know. I had that phase in my life, and I suspect many of us had that. Also had that phase in our own lives. Who am I? You're growing up, you don't know who you are, you don't know who exactly you are, what exactly what is your place in the world. So we need to help individuals identify get a sense of self-awareness, self-image, and a good self-esteem. It will reduce some of these use problems. Another, like I've identified before, is peer pressure. The craze to feel cool. You want to belong in a park. You don't want to be isolated because okay, I have 5 friends and 4 of them are using. If we go out and I'm not using, they'll be like, this one Juma. When we go, I'm not gonna look at him. The guy gonna do as if na him holy pass, na him sabi pass. So that peer pressure, that crave to feel among, we then indulge in experimentation, and some people cannot actually, break free from it. So that's also an important, factor. These days, it's becoming more and more common for people to tell you that the reason why they first started using substances was to increase physical or sexual performance. Some people will say, I work as a bricklayer, I work in as a loader, I work in a physically exerting or mentally exerting sector, and I need this thing to help me carry on, to push myself, to do more work and all. So some people just use this to increase physical activity performance or to increase sexual performance. And people say, if you use this one, you go last for 500 hours. And a lot of people get trapped, by all this information. That's another reason. Then for some people, it's crave for pleasure, adventure. For some people, they'll say it's because it was easily accessible. They could get it anywhere. Turning left, turning right is everywhere. So they could easily get it. And for some people, they were just curious and just wanted to try something new. So those are some of the things I've identified. I know a lot of us have identified other reasons, and the list is non-exhaustive. That's one of the reasons why young people have actually said they actually got into use of substances. So if we understand this, then we're able to tailor specific programs to help young people through these phases, so that they are able to make informed choices and are able to get help. Now I spoke about other substances, and somebody will ask, what about alcohol? What about alcohol? Is alcohol a drug? Is alcohol a substance? And the general consensus is generally yes. Alcohol is identified as a drug. Alcohol is identified as a substance. The thing with alcohol is that because alcohol has been present in our sociocultural settings, in all over the world for millennia, alcohol has been with man almost for several years. It has become a very big part of human existence. So in fact, there was a social experiment in the US after the First World War. I'm not sure if it's in the US, but I know there was a social experiment after the First World War where they tried to prohibit sale and use of alcohol, and it was not successful. Because the use was so rampant. People were already using this for as long as they can remember. So it was met with a lot of resistance. So legally, alcohol is legal almost all over the world. It's legal to use alcohol. But in terms of public health, it still constitutes a significant public health concern. It's still one of the substances that constitute the greatest public health concern, and it's still one of the substances identified as gateway substances. So we call some substances like some three popular substances as gateway substances. That's alcohol, tobacco, and the cannabis, because a lot of people who use other substances first start with one or all of these three. So yes, there's still a big problem with use of alcohol. Though it's not a legal problem, there's still some significant public health concern with alcohol. Now, let me now dive into the crux of my discussion today. The first thing I just want to highlight in talking about how to get help is the cycle of change. It's very popular. I know a lot of us know the cycle of change, and if we actually don't, we've not heard of it before, we can just do a quick Google search, the cycle of change. See a picture of what it is, and I'll describe the stages, as I go on. But the cycle of change is very important, because when we try to help people design programs, or design what's best for them, what best suit them, we need to understand what stage is this individual in the cycle of change. Because if, for example, you use an intervention, a very good intervention, that should be used at the fifth stage, for somebody who's at the first stage, no matter how good it is, it will be unsuccessful. So it's important to identify this individual I'm interacting with. What stage is he at? And based on what stage he's at, it will now determine what sort of help can be offered. So first of all, the cycle of change describes how people are able to achieve change with or without therapy. So some people actually are able to achieve changes in their life without therapy, while some are need therapy to actually achieve the change they want. So this cycle of change, one of the very important components of the cycle of change is that this cycle of change insists that the primary responsibility to change lies with the individual. So part of the first interaction you have with an individual, you need to say, see, the primary responsibility to change lies with the individual. Every other person is only present to support the individual in their journey to recovery. So it's a popular saying that you can force a horse to the river, but you can't force it to drink water. And from experience, I'll tell us some common experiences I had when I was practicing in Nigeria. Some people actually came to the facility to seek help, not necessarily because they wanted to, but because they've been promised something. So for some people, they'll promise them that, okay, if you do this, I will do this. So maybe their parents, they've tried everything, it's not working. The person will say, okay, Kachi, if you're able to do this, if you're able to get clean of these substances, I will do this for you. Then that will not make me to come and try and engage. Not because I want to, but because, okay, there's something I'm looking at. For other people, it may be that, okay, they were caught, by criminal justice system, and they've been compelled to go and seek help. So they'll not be like, okay, let me just go. Let me just go so that, let me just tick the box, So when these people are coming, you need to help these people, you need to understand what stage they are at, and help them to understand that, see, the primary responsibility is with you. So nobody is going to help you if you don't want to change, if you don't want to. It's a hard truth. It's a hard truth that everyone needs to realize. If you want to, then people can help you. If you don't want to, no matter how hard you try, it is difficult to help. And that's the place of intrinsic motivation. So there's intrinsic motivation and there's extrinsic motivation. So for intrinsic motivation, I'm choosing to do this for my own self, for myself. Why for extrinsic? I'm choosing to do this for somebody else, okay, because of my family, okay, because of my friends, okay, because they've caught me and police have said I must go and go for rehab and do this and do that. So that's extrinsic. Now the danger with extrinsic motivation is that if in extrinsic motivation, if you take off the source of the motivation, then the motivation disappears. I'll give you an example. A gentleman, the first attempt he had at rehabilitation was because he was in love with a girl. He was in love with a girlfriend, a girl, and he really wanted to marry this girl. And he went himself to the rehab, but the reason why he wanted to stop was because the girl had said, see, oh boy, I love you marry junkie. You are a junkie. I can't marry a junkie. So the only reason the only condition I'll marry you is if you become clean. And this gentleman say, hey, I love this girl. Oh, I feel die for this girl. I must marry this girl. This guy, gentleman, went, sought help, and was clean for 6 months. And this gentleman, when I say he was clean for 6 months, he was a multi-substance, use patient. So he had used a ton of substances, different substances. He was among the very complex individuals to deal with. But he achieved 6 months sobriety. I mean, for some people, you say that's a big deal. And after 6 months sobriety, this gentleman went back to the girl and said, babe, guess what though? 6 months, I never touched anything. I said, there if I go do it, I never touched anything. And the girl told him, Baba, sorry, I know, thank God, I'm glad that at least, if not for anything, if you've not got anything from this relationship, at least you've become clean, but still, I still can't marry you. And what happened? This gentleman relapsed, and he went in deeper than he was in the first time. So you see that the problem was not that that he actually did not change. I mean, this gentleman achieved maintenance in his recovery, but the major problem was that his motivation was primarily extrinsic, and as soon as the source of the motivation was taken off, he lost the will to change. He lost the will to carry on. So in as much as extrinsic motivation is important and is helpful, you try to help these people to, through the extrinsic motivation, to find intrinsic motivation, because that's a very big ingredient in getting help and in recovering from use of substances. So, like for this cycle of change I'm going to talk about, this cycle of change, many people can go through this cycle more than once before they make a final exit. And people may move around the cycle in either direction. So you may have somebody who is at stage 4. Instead of the person to go to stage 5, the person goes back to stage 3. So they can move clockwise or anti-clockwise in the cycle of change. And they could move around this cycle several times before they make a final exit. Why I'm saying this is that if you are a family member, a friend, a mental health professional, somebody who is involved in caring for people who use substances, you need to understand this. So that not when somebody who is trying to change, maybe the person has a setback or a lapse or whatever it is, and you begin I thought you don't feel ever change for this life. You are condemned. Not what a person fit do for you. You need to understand that it is more about the process than it is about the destination. So understanding that, see, an individual can go around this cycle more than once before they make a final exit, and they could actually be some setbacks or what we call lapses. Understanding that is, you now know what to do to prevent lapses. You know what to do to help people when they had a lapse, and not just judging them and condemning them. They will never change. Now, to the cycle of change proper, the first stage in the cycle of change is pre-contemplation. So with pre-contemplation, the individual has no plans. He has no plans to take action. They don't think they have any problem. So this kind of individuals, like I said, they may only engage with professionals because people have actually said, you must go, family or friends, or the legal, justice, the criminal justice system say you must go and seek help. But these people, they don't think they have a problem. Every other person saying, Papa, this thing where they do, this is not normal. This is not normal. You be like, these people are they okay? So in pre-contemplation, this individual has not identified that there's a problem. They are not identified. So, for example, if you move an individual that is at pre-contemplation stage, into inpatient rehab, these are very, very difficult patients to cope with, because they don't even realize that there's a problem. So the intervention, although good, may be premature. It may be prematurely introduced. So for people who are at pre-contemplation, every other person is saying that there's a problem except you. You're not seeing anything, that you're not seeing what they're saying. What these people actually benefit from is psychoeducation, is guided self-help, is counseling. Helping them to actually see the problem. getting many people to actually help them identify that, see, Baba, there's actually a problem. Look at what is going on. This is not normal. This is not usual. This is not you. This is a shift in your behavior, in your character. This is a shift from the Kachi we've always known. This is not normal. You need to get help. So that's the phase for counseling, for guidance, self-help, for support for these individuals. Okay. Then the next stage is contemplation. The Kachi will not be like, oh boy, it's like this. What people are saying is correct, though. It's like things are going to the left, though. It's like this problem. Like I have a problem with these drugs. Or me that I used to think that I'm in charge. It's like these drugs are actually in charge of my life. Oh, so they've not recognized the problem in contemplation stage, and they are having thoughts about changing, but they are unsure how to proceed. They're not sure. Okay, even this thing, how I want to come out for this thing, how I want to take escape from this. So they're unsure. So these kind of people now, they now benefit from engagement with mental health professionals. They benefit from counseling. They benefit from, discussing the problem and discussing options. What are the options available? How can we walk you through this process? What can be done? Because we need to understand that what works for Mr. A will not work for Mr. B. Therapy and care plan for individuals with substance use is individualized, so it must be tailored to the individual. So it's at this stage of contemplation that okay, they will benefit from getting them exposed, getting them the first contact with the mental health professionals, getting them, online guided self-help resources. Okay, how to get help? What can I do? What do I need to do? And the third stage is preparation. So we're speaking about first pre-contemplation, then contemplation, then preparation. So in preparation stage, now they've now decided to change. Okay, now I've now decided to change, but they're still unsure how to go about it. Now they've now decided to change. Then at that point, you now plan. You now have a care and therapy plan. Okay, this is what we can do. This is what we should do. This is how we would factor in everything around you to support you in your road to recovery. And the fourth stage is the action stage. So the action stage, they've decided that they want to change. They've decided how to change, and they are now making efforts to change. So they decided they want to change. They decided how to change, and they're now making efforts. They're not affecting those plans that have been set up by the team, or by the general team. Just a digression. One of the very important things that patients are made to understand in therapy, because in therapy it involves a lot of people. It involves the doctor, involves the nurses, involves the clinical psychologists, involves the support workers, involves counselors, involves a lot of, in fact, involves family and friends. One question we ask people when they are trying to engage in therapy is that, see, these are the members of your team, your recovery team. There are a lot of them, plenty of people in your recovery team. Who do you think?
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone.
Hello?
Hello. Please, you are not to speak until you are asked to do so. You are interrupting our speaker.
Hello? Can I go on?
Just go on, Dr. Kachi, please. Go on.
Okay. All right. So sorry about that. So you ask the patient, okay, these are all the members of your recovery team. Who do you think is the most important person in this team? Some patients will say the doctor. Some patients will say the nurses. Some patients will say the clinical psychologist. Some patients will say support worker. Some patients will say your family. But we remind them that the most important person in this therapy team is you. You, the patient, you, the client, whatever terminology you choose to use, you are the most important person in this team. Every other person revolves around you. Every other person, is trying to help you achieve your own goals, your own dreams, your own results. So you are the most important person. So that mentality of making them understand that they are co-therapists would help them also to take some responsibility, and also is very useful for successful therapies. So I've said number one, pre-contemplation, second stage contemplation, third stage preparation, fourth stage action, and the fifth stage is maintenance. So in maintenance, okay, in action they've been doing all these things. We've actually designed in the plan and everything. We've been working together, and in this stage of maintenance, they are sustaining this change behavior for a long while. For some people will say at least 6 months, and they intend to maintain this behavior going forward. So this is what we call the maintenance stage. So at this maintenance stage, the kind of things you will try to do for individuals in this maintenance stage, you try to help them to train them for relapse prevention. Because one thing that happens with comfort is that a lot of people, when they get to this stage of maintenance, oh my God, see me, I've been using substances for 16 months. 16 years of my life, and for the past 6 months, wallahi, I never touched anything. That stage is a very delicate phase that must be managed, because if they are not careful, if they are not deliberate, they may be prone to this, to relapse or to lapse, because they become more comfortable. They may become more confident. Baba, no, forget nothing. Me wait 6 months, I never thought I'm not going to use anything. So we have patients who go out, and when they're in action phase, maybe one of the things they've drawn up in their action plan is that, okay, a patient is addicted to cannabis or to opioids, and one of the things in the care plan is delete the contact, discontinue contact with your suppliers. Discontinue contact with your suppliers. And throughout their action phase, they've not had any contact with their suppliers. Suppliers have been trying to reach them, they've not been able to reach them. They've been trying to send them a message, they've not been able to send them a message. And after the 6 months, they're now fine. They'll now be like, nothing they happen, nothing much. They will now be passing through that place where the supplier usually stays. Supplier now calls them, Baba, Kachi, how far now? I don't think I see you. How you doing? I don't take 6 months. You say, no, Baba, I don't do that life again. I'm not doing that again. I've been there and done that. I'm out. Not be me and you again. Supplier will say, no, nothing, no a problem. You know, I have I say, let me give you. No, don't pay me. It's for free. It's for free. And the patient say, wait.
All right, bud. I was gonna follow you. I was gonna tell you to shut the fuck up. But I mean, like drug abuse and how to get help. Do you want to hear it? Oh shit! Come on now.
Hello?
Please continue, Dr. Kachi, please.
Host, I want you to realize that a lot of people who are pro liberal use of drugs, they what do you call it? They spam this kind of spaces. So be careful about the kind of request you actually accept. Otherwise you just make this conversation very not so pleasant. So like I was saying, so the individual sees the supplier and he was like, okay, just have this for free, and he's now tempted. Okay, let me just do just today, and that'll be it. And they start and they actually go back, to the where they actually left off from. So this is maintenance. It's very important to help them, with programs on relapse prevention and how to cope in the larger world. And the 6th stage is lapse and relapse. So essentially it's just return to previous behavior despite efforts to change. So in the course of this change process, a number of individuals actually return to this use behavior. Despite it's not because they want to, but mistakes happen, accidents happen, and this return could be temporary, which we call lapse, or it could be full return, which we call a relapse. And a lapse or a relapse is not an evidence of treatment failure. It just means we need to go back, find out what happened, what went wrong, and try again and go again. So it's important because as family and friends, sometimes family and friends become impatient when patients are actually going through lapse or relapse, and they tend not to be supportive. People are very supportive when people are taking action, when they are maintaining change behavior, but they are not very supportive when they have lapses or relapses, and that's when they need the support the most. So like I said, the therapy that we would use are different, or what is helpful will determine at what stage of this cycle an individual is in. and with discussion with them, work in most part of the world, working with people who have substance use problem, is the best possible outcome. The best possible outcome is abstinence. But although abstinence is the best possible outcome, we also need to realize that there are various steps in the ladder towards achieving this. So, for example, if somebody wants to get to the top of a building, the goal is to get to the top of the building, but the person needs to go through steps, to get to that point. So that the person is not at the top of the building yet, it doesn't mean the person is not making progress, but that the person is off where they were yesterday is some sort of progress. So we need to understand that. So some harm reduction, for example, is one of the steps that could be used, in their road to recovery from use of substances. For example, like some patients who have opioid use disorder, who are addicted to opioid. Stopping patients from use of opioids, especially people who have used very large doses, stopping it abruptly could be very, very disastrous. They could have very terrible withdrawal symptoms, and it could even be life-threatening. So these people need to be supported through that phase. And what involves is usually in best practice is to actually help in harm reduction. So switching to controllable alternatives, and with that, plan for eventual detoxification, or whenever the patient is ready for that phase. So that harm reduction is not, some people will argue that, okay, harm reduction, you're putting on other substances, but you need to understand the rationale for that. These are safer, these are controlled, and it helps you to slowly taper down until you completely take them off, if that is the goal for the particular client. So some people also argue that, let's not see abstinence as a goal, in recovery. Let's just believe that abstinence is a natural outcome of a good rehabilitation process. So just forget about, big target. Of course, the ultimate, the bigger goal is very important. But why not we start from smaller goals, smaller achievable goals, and build up to the eventual bigger goal? It could be the natural outcome of a good, process. And like I'll say again, a number of us fall into different categories. For some people here, they've used substances, they are currently having substance use problems, and they want to get help. I want to tell you that please seek help. There's help for you, and treatment actually works. Now, for people who actually have not used substances but are contemplating using, they are saying, it's not that deep. I want to say that it is easier to stay off drugs than to get off drugs. It is easier to stay off drugs than to get off drugs. So prevention is easier, is cheaper, is more practicable than cure. In fact, for addiction, we don't speak about cure, because in definition of addiction, we define addiction as a chronic relapsing brain condition. So it's chronic, it's like hypertension or diabetes, where you have to be on medication for a long time to manage your symptom. And it's relapsing in that a number of people actually have setbacks or lapses or relapses in the course of their recovery process. So it's important to know that. So please, it is easier to stay off drugs than to get off drugs. Now, getting help. Finally, before I round up, getting help. One of the first things I talk to patients is that, like, one of the MDPs, like I talk about MDP a lot of times. I say, through your process of recovery, first thing I think is very important is you need some intrinsic motivation. So I'm catchy, I'll be using this substance. I genuinely want to, because I'm not living my best life. I want to get some reprieve or some help. I need to realize that I need intrinsic motivation. And there are people who could help you with this. There are motivation enhancement therapies. There are people who could help you with this. And there are other self-help, tools are available online as well. The second thing that's very important is discipline. And discipline is one of the very, very big things that, that is taught to individuals, especially those who are in inpatient rehabilitation, because discipline involves doing what you need to do even when you don't feel like doing it. For example, I'm actually at work. I'm on break and I'm doing this Twitter space. This morning I actually did not feel like going to work. That's the truth, and I feel like that's on many days. Not feel like going to work, feel tired, feel like if I could get extra 4 hours sleep or something. But the truth is, I have to go to work, so I have to do what I have to do even when I don't really feel like doing it. So that's discipline, and part of recovery process involves helping individuals to maintain some level of discipline in the course of their journeys, because without discipline you just have very low fences, and it means that it will just be back and forth because everything will just go. And finally is purpose. For a lot of people who have actually been on a long period of time, who have actually been sober, or who have actually got their lives back on harm reduction for a long period of time, one of the very big ingredients for them is finding purpose. For example, I'll give you an example. One individual, one gentleman was using substances, tried every form of thing, wasn't working, tried every inpatient, outpatient, every kind of stuff, it wasn't working. The game changer for this individual got married, had a young girl who he so much loved, until a day this young girl, I don't know how she got access to some of his pills and took them, and she was in coma. And this gentleman world was crumbling down, because it was at that stage that he started to understand, and he was like, if this young girl does not die from this, like, I'm not going to do that again. And for him, according to his testimony, he was like, eventually, his child went through a lot, but eventually when she recovered and everything, that was the beginning of the end for him. That was the beginning of the end of use of substance, because more than just being motivated intrinsically, more than just being disciplined, he's now found a purpose. He's now found something even bigger than himself, something that consumes him totally, which was his beautiful daughter. And because of that, that was worth giving up this other thing for. Why we need to understand this is that use of substance, it toys with the brain reward system. And if you understand, if you see the neurochemistry, if you see the movement of if you see the actual activity of the chemicals in the brain when individuals use substances, some of these substances, they can almost never get it from anything else. So the kind of pleasure people get from these substances, trying to say that okay, there's something else that you actually use to get this kind of release of this kind of pleasure neurotransmitters, it is almost not practicable. So that even makes it more difficult, and it actually even perpetuates the use. So helping them to find helping them to achieve find purpose that is larger than themselves is also important in this journey. So the first thing is, those who are acutely unwell, those who are acutely distressed, those who are acutely intoxicated, who have serious withdrawal problems, who have complications from use, I think the first point is to actually seek medical help, to sort out those immediate life-threatening problems. That's the first step, and not to hide, just to seek medical help from non-judgmental health workers. So that's very important. Now, also, like I said, for people, especially those who are at the pre-contemplation and contemplation stages, there are a lot of self-help resources online, you could provide to them, or they could actually source for themselves, and they could help them identify what exactly is the problem, identify what stage of recovery, stage of this cycle am I in, learn more about drug use, the long-term consequences, read more about people who have used this in the past. What happened? People who are free, how do they go about it? So these kind of self-help resources are also very useful in the process of getting help. Now, I want to say, please, in the process of getting help, suddenly stopping use of some substances can be very risky and even life-threatening. So even though you are very keen and very motivated to stop, please discuss with people who are professionals about this, so that they plan the process, and so that you don't get very life-threatening or consequence, from that, especially with large use of some very toxic substances. Now, there are different options. There are different modalities in terms of psychotherapy, in terms of talking therapies. So the clinical psychologists, the occupational therapists will work through these individuals with things like motivation enhancement therapies, with cognitive behavioral therapies. Very, very helpful at different stages of the cycle of change. People also benefit. So people have also reported benefiting from support groups. And the support groups will also depend on the support group they are put in will depend on what stage they are at. And also there's also, like I discussed earlier, there's medication assisted treatment where people are actually helped with medications to cope with their symptoms and other social to cope with their symptoms. A lot of things are also social activity, social activation, behavior activation. For example, in our context, some people have reported benefits with religion, with sports, with music, and with art. So all these things, could be used, to tailor a plan, for individual who is trying to get help. And also, I want to reiterate that family and friends, the support of family and friends cannot be overemphasized. For some people who are in some programs, in some inpatient and outpatient rehabilitation programs, some people actually enter these programs with people they call sponsors. So, like, the sponsor is someone who one doesn't use. It's very important that the sponsor doesn't use, but doesn't judge. So doesn't use, doesn't judge, and doesn't condone use. So this sponsor is not somebody who is paying bills. Sponsor essentially is just somebody who is helping you through this your phase of recovery. So this sponsor should be somebody who doesn't use, because if he uses, like, people may just be at one point and just nobody's helping anybody, but doesn't judge, understand that it's a problem and there are solutions, and I'm here to help you through this phase, but doesn't condone use. So it's somebody who you can meet up and say, oh, guess what, I've just had a lapse, and the person will not judge you, but the person will not say, no, it's fine, it's not a problem, it's just a small this stuff. The person will actually help you understand that it's actually a setback, but we can actually walk through this. So family and friends could actually be very, very important in this recovery cycle. I'll try and round up because I think I'll be talking too much. Like I said earlier, there's no one size fits all. So everything that's done for individuals must be individualized. So what works for A may not work for B. What works in Sokoto may not work in Lagos. So these modalities need to be individualized. Care plans need to be individualized in these individuals. Now, just summarily, what this process involves things like helping these people to understand what addiction is, helping these people identify their triggers, both internal and external triggers, and what are the warning signs. How do I know that, I need to be careful, something is coming up? My cravings, how do I identify my cravings and how do I manage my cravings? Okay, how do I develop adaptive coping strategies? I've identified earlier that because people are not able to develop adaptive coping strategies, they use other forms of maladaptive coping strategies. So instead of wishing away the problems, why not help individuals identify adaptive coping strategies? These are some of the things that could be done to help individuals. Then helping them also to prevent relapse and to maintain intrinsic motivation. I emphasize on intrinsic because that's the most useful form. And other medical assisted therapy, including stabilization, harm reduction, detoxification, and the rest of them. I don't want to bore us with all those jargons and all those concepts at the moment. But in the end, I'll just round up by saying that untreated substance abuse may destroy your health. It may destroy your relationships. It may destroy your finances. It may even destroy your life. So the best time to seek help was yesterday. The next best time to seek help is now. Don't waste your life getting wasted. Don't waste your life getting wasted. So I just want to encourage us to help, try and help, try and reduce stigma, try not to be judgmental, try and find out if you identify a problem. The first thing that should come to your mind will not be to say how to judge, how to say, at least I don't see person I better pass. The first thing that should come to your mind is how can I help? And it's that mentality that we need to join hands with agencies like the NDLEA, joining hands with institutions we can use to help people who are in their road to recovery to get free and to get the best out of their lives. At this point, I'll yield the mic and I'll remain on speaker session for any questions. Thank you so much, Mr. Babafemi, for the opportunity. Thank you, Mr. Mahmoud, all the members of the team, and I appreciate this privilege. And I yield the mic at this point. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you, Dr. Kachi. That I can say was a very brilliant, excellent, extensive, educative, and comprehensive presentation. I have learned more than enough, and I guess quite a lot of us on this space have also learned a lot. That is the whole essence of this platform, to educate ourselves, to share knowledge, to share information, to share facts, so that we all can learn and also get help for those that really need the help. I appreciate you, Dr. Kachi, for that excellent, and I would also like to appreciate you again for taking time off your work to be part of this conversation, to lead this conversation today. Before we go on, Dr. Kachi has really done excellently well. For those that have been making requests, now you can, I guess, I was approving some requests in the course of his presentation, and those, the people that were granted the requests were interrupting the presentation, so we had to take virtually everybody off that. Now you can make your request, but before we come to you, Dr. Kachi, to respond to. Let me quickly acknowledge quite some of us already on the space. Let me acknowledge Joy Eberebe. Joy Eberebe is one of those that came on the space early today. Thank you, Emir of Nigeria, Abiodun of Manu, Ojokuku, Tinu Dowu. Tinu Dowu is actually joining us from the District of Columbia in the US. Thank you, M. Sunny. Thank you, OK Auspicious. Thank you, Regina Ejegarin. Thank you, Dr. Kolo. Jonah, Dr. Kolo is an officer of the agency. Thank you, Bashir Ibrahim, who is also a commander with the agency. Thank you, our own Parabawa, who is also a senior officer of the agency. Thank you, Ahmad Eniola Taiwo. Thank you, Femi Agbualu. Agbualu is also a commander, a senior officer of the agency. Thank you, Tunde Snow, our own Dr. Loretta. I guess Loretta is back in the States now. If you are still in Abuja, please let me know. But I guess by now, going by our last conversation, she should be, she's probably joining us from Chicago, Illinois in the US. Thank you, Oko Isaiah Ogwashi. Thank you, Idris Oseni, Vision Ibagbe Ifua. Thank you, Akintobi Habiba. Thank you, Sneeze Dabis. Thank you, our own Dara Nelson. Thank you, Yao Dogara. And thank you, Deji Adesogon. That is Uncle Deji. Thank you, Steve Babaeko. Thank you, everyone. I will continue to acknowledge as many as I can. But quickly, let's hear from those already eager to interrogate Dr. Kachi. Okay, I'll start with Sneeze Dabis. I think he's been very patient. Sneeze Dabis, if you can hear me, please unmute yourself and let's make our contribution or question very sharp and precise so that we can take as many as possible. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon.
Please go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm just trying to ask the question here.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I think we lost him. He slipped off. He lost the mic. I guess it's his network. Okay. Let me yield the mic to one of the new persons. Udo Bongs. Udo Bong. Are you ready for your question or your intervention? Please, if you can hear me, quickly unmute yourself and let's hear from you. Otherwise, I'll move to our DM right immediately to read some questions for Dr. Kashi to respond to. Okay, Dr. Kashi, from our DM, Sini is asking, how can someone who is totally addicted get help to stop taking drugs, having in mind that he or she is totally dependent on drugs and has no control over it? That is one. Please kindly note that. I'll take two at a go, then we'll come back to our DM when you are done. Let me repeat his question again. He's asking, how can someone who is totally addicted get help to stop taking drugs, having in mind that he or she is totally dependent on drugs and has no control over it? Again, we have Val. I am a 23-year-old female who is on medication to alleviate the pain experienced after surgery. What do I do in order not to fall into the cage of drug abuse? Okay, I guess you understand that, Dr. Kashi. Let's get your response to that before we come back to give those on the space, the mic.
Yeah. First of all, I appreciate those people who actually sent these messages, and it's the first stage, of actually getting, the help. The first gentleman who asked about how someone who's addicted can get help. I think the first information that needs to be answered is what the addiction is to what substance. So addictions could be to different substances, and what modality will be useful for one substance is different from what modality will be useful for another substance. For some substances, the kind of dependence they give is psychological dependence. So the mind feels that, oh God, whenever they don't get the substance, their mind is their mind is just going up and forward. They're not able to concentrate. They have problems. They're very irritable. Those kind of psychological dependence. The modality for working with those people is much different. Now, people who are dependent to who have physical dependence, for some substances, for example, like the opioids. When people don't get those substances, they get very, very intense physical symptoms, not just in the mind, not just my mind. Like, they get serious physical symptoms. It's like some of them feel like they are even drowning and everything. So what is going to be done will depend on what kind of substance the individual is addicted to. What I want to reassure that person is that that help is possible. Help is possible. That's the first thing, because a lot of people actually get only the negative stories about recovery. So they'll tell people, they'll hear people and say, I've been to the rehab 5 times, but nothing did. You don't waste, nothing they happen, no waste your time, no waste your energy and everything. So say, I don't go this year, how many years, nothing, they work. But we don't hear a lot about the success stories, and I think a lot of the reasons why is because of stigma. We don't hear a lot about success stories, and we need to know that help is possible. Help is possible. So the first step would to be find out, is this person motivated to change? Has this person understood that there's a problem and motivated to change? If yes, the person will need to engage with a mental health professional, and they will need to design around the person, design what works based on the context of practicality, based on the context, because unfortunately in Nigeria and how our health system is run, healthcare is not we have some challenges to accessing healthcare, not just with mental health care, even physical health care, so it's not affordable. to a very large extent is not acceptable, is not accessible, it's not available, and even to a very large extent it may not be acceptable, the modalities. So we need to have means of tailoring down. So I would say that please don't, especially if you're addicted on substances like the opioids, like cocaine, like tramadol, codeine. Our advice, please do not attempt to stop on your own, because a lot of reasons why people go back is because of the withdrawal effect. So some people get very bad withdrawals, and like that they'll be like, I will never want to experience that again, and because of that they will not want to stop. But if you are helped through a process of helping you to, first of all, the first stage in a lot of times will be harm reduction, especially with those that have physical dependence. So replace those substances with other substances like that can be prescribed and that can be controlled. And from that, if the individual is aiming at abstinence, help the individual through detoxification and the rest of it. So please speak to somebody, speak to your psychologist, your clinical psychologist, because not all psychologists are clinical psychologists. Speak to your mental health nurse, speak to your doctor, and ask for what sort of help is available in your surrounding, in terms of affordability, in terms of availability as well. Because unfortunately, like I worked in a private sector in Abuja, and I only have access to private hospitals. I know a number of, like for example in Abuja, I know Karo General Hospital also offers services, and a number of general hospitals and federal medical centers in Abuja could also offer support, even FMC Abuja. But I don't know how it is in other parts of the country, unfortunately. So just speak to your doctor. He could help you get access, or your counselor or your clinical psychologist. He could help you get access to what is available around you, and what is affordable. And what is accessible. The other lady asked question about pain. A number of people actually, their road to addiction actually started from inappropriate use of pain medication. I've got a number of individuals who are sickle cell patients, and who irregularly have pain crisis and have to use very strong pain medications, to control this crisis. And they get to a point where they begin to self-medicate, and they get to a point where they cannot control the use of these substances. So please speak to your doctor. Usually for the stronger pain medication, we try after surgery, we try as much as possible not to use these medications beyond a week. So any of these medications should be used in the range of 3 to 5 days. Within 3 to 5 days, most of the post-op pain should have reduced to some extent. And if the individual requires more potent analgesia long term, it needs to be discussed, it needs to be properly planned, and also weaning the individual off this analgesia also needs to be properly planned. So speak to your doctor about these concerns. I mean, you are in charge of your care, not the doctor. So speak to him that, see, I'm on this pain medication, I don't want to get addicted. Please, how long am I going to be on it for? What is the plan to take me off it? Are you going to take it at once, or are you going to reduce the dose before you eventually stop? So these are my own advice, based on my limited knowledge. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kashi. Again, before I come to you, Jika Shehu, just hold on for me. Let me take our own Loretta from Illinois, Chicago. Loretta, if you can hear me, and if your network in Chicago is not going to disappoint you, please go ahead.
Hi, Dr. Babafemi. Good afternoon. My network is awesome. Dr. Kachi, well done. I've been in and out, but I think you've done an excellent job. You've taught the topic apart, and I say kudos. We really pray we have more of your likes, talking about this across the country and outside the country. Quickly for me, two things. You talked about stigma. I'd meant to talk at the time, but I was on transit, so I couldn't quickly talk. So on stigma, I think I've mentioned this several, that stigma is one of the major reasons why people aren't actually seeking help. And the more people don't seek help, the more harm is increased among the people who are users or abusers, their families, community, and every other person involved in their life, in their circle. So, the issue of stigma cannot be overemphasized, to to emphasize, it cannot be overemphasized if it comes to the issue of recovery and issue of people willing to access available care and support. Secondly, you mentioned psychology, having access to clinical psychologists. I'm a psychologist. I had my master's in clinical psychology, but in my PhD right now, I'm doing something they call clinical community psychology for my PhD. However, in Nigeria, we do not have a lot of clinical psychologists, but we have an association in Nigeria called Nigerian Psychology Association. In that association, we have a whole lot of the few clinical psychologists in Nigeria are in that association. And I know there was a time at the National Hospital, they had contacted me to say, you know what, we need you to help with one or two cases. And I said to them, I was able to help at that moment, but what I would say is that people have the difficulty of accessing clinical psychologists. And I want to say that if there's anyone here that you need to access a clinical psychologist in Nigeria, they are not a lot. They're just a handful. They're not a lot. You could just go to Nigeria Psychology Association. You can contact the admin there, the secretary there, and they will link you to the right person. We need it now because with the passing of the mental health into law is one big huge achievement for the medical world. So if you need to, please contact someone in NPA, and let us as individuals, let it start from us to say that whoever you find around you, the lesser the more we discriminate against them, the more we stigmatize them. Remember that they will be afraid to access care, but rather let us love them, let's support them, and let's also point them to the right direction like the NDLEA is doing. Having said that, thank you so much, Dr. Kachi. You've done excellently. Thank you, Mr. Bafemi, for giving me the mic. I yield the mic right now.
Thank you very much, Loretta. Yeah. We appreciate you always for your contribution. Okay, Dr. Kachi, please, you want to say something to that? Please go ahead.
Yeah, just 30 seconds. Thank you so much, Dr. Loretta. And I want to say about clinical psychologists. Like, I worked with one of the most amazing clinical psychologists there ever is in Nigeria. Like, when I worked in Nigeria in an inpatient rehabilitation facility for 18 months when I was still in Nigeria, I worked with a clinical psychologist who is not very knowledgeable, who is very. And it hurts me that we're not working hard to train and retrain more and more people, so that they are more accessible to to a lot of other people, because there's a lot of job, there's a lot of role. There's a very big role the clinical psychologist needs to play in the whole setup. So the stuff cannot be overemphasized. And about stigma, I think, even in Nigeria, if you look at a lot of inpatient rehabilitation facilities, they don't have signboards. And it's deliberate. It's not because you don't want to have signboard, because people don't want to be identified as going into a rehab. Okay, hey, Kachi. So na rehab, na Kachi, they go. Yeah. So people don't want to identify. So because of that, a lot of inpatient rehab facilities don't even put up signboards. And the problem with social stigma in itself is bad, but it becomes even complex when it moves to self-stigma. So social stigma is, this discrimination, by the world, to people because of particular things. But it now gets worse when even the individual begins to internalize this discrimination, begins to stigmatize even himself, and it's a barrier to therapy. So please, let's understand the consequences of stigma. It's not just easy. It could be any of us. It could have been anybody. So don't just focus on how to support rather than discriminating or stigmatizing people because of particular reasons.
Yeah, Dr. Kachi, I think we're getting there gradually, because I'm happy we're getting there, because if you look at the work the NDLEA is doing, the call center alone is really doing a whole lot of work already. And I think compared to a couple of years ago, when people weren't talking about mental health at all in Nigeria, nobody actually knew what mental health was. But now, I just left Nigeria a couple of days ago, and I kept hearing, my mental health is important, so I beg, my mental health. So I was excited to hear that people are saying, oh, mental health, right? So we are getting there. It's starting in bits and pieces, but we have more platform of such, have more people like you, and we have more ambassadors, because once we know that their mental health is key, they'll begin to link They'll begin to know the fact that they need to access a mental health support center. And the word, and I keep talking about terminologies. I mean, using the word rehab is something we have to be careful about, because we have to look for a better word to use. Maybe care and support, maybe something else. Because, like you said, rehab. That person, no, that's not it. That someone goes through doesn't mean the person is having a major mental breakdown or something like that. So I keep saying that our terminology and stigma, it goes hand in hand, and so that's just what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Lorette. That was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great conversation, you guys, and those were great points that you brought up. I appreciate that.
Okay, Dr. Kashi, are you okay with that? You don't want to say anything to that before I speak to the next person?
No, I'm
Okay,
fine. I'm
okay,
good.
okay, that's fine. I can see Kerry. You would okay. Quickly unmute yourself and let's hear from you, please.
Thank you. I appreciate this. This is a great space. I'm glad that you guys are hosting this, because this is something that, as a mother, I am trying to find answers as to how to deal with my children and how to prevent them from falling into this rabbit hole that I just see so many people falling into. And I guess I just want to maybe open the question up to anybody who might have the answer. What are some of the signs that I, as a mother, should be looking out for before my child starts turning to drugs? What should I be looking out for?
Thank you, Kerry. Dr. Kashi, I think that's straightforward for you. Please go ahead.
Thanks for that question, Kerry. The truth is different for different individuals. So the factors that cause individuals to use substances is different for different individuals. So on one hand, you could have a child who is withdrawn, and as a result of social withdrawal and poor social skills, they are more prone to use substances. On another hand, you have a child who is very interactive, is out there, and also that interaction also makes him prone to use substances. So unfortunately, there's no magic bullet. Unfortunately, I think for parents, the most important thing is to help their children. First of all, be available, and also help their children to develop life skills. And provide them with information. I think another problem we have is access to, I wouldn't say inaccurate information, but not the whole information. So a number of these young people just know that, okay, these drugs actually help people to get high. They help people to relax.
Dr. Kachi, can you hear me?
Sorry, I'm still speaking. Could you mute your mic, please?
Yeah, I'm taking him off the speaker's corner. Please go ahead.
So help, that's on one hand, that's true. For example, if you're educating your child, some parents try to conceal some of the truth from the child. Say, all right, the child has been hearing that use of these substances are actually to relax and all the rest. And as a parent, you're coming to say, because you don't want your child to use your too, it doesn't help you get high. Is if your child eventually uses those substances and he gets high, he would then believe that whatever other thing you're saying is actually not true. So one of the most important things to do is to give them balanced information. Help them see that although these drugs have temporary gains, they have long-term consequences. Eventually, unfortunately, even when people understand all this, people still choose and make decisions. But in that case, you know that this individual is making an informed choice. And it's different from when an individual falls into a trap without knowing. So one of the first things is giving them balanced information. Another thing is help them develop coping skills and help them find other activities. For example, as a young person, I always crave adventure. I always crave that feeling, that feeling of high, that feeling of good, that good feeling and everything. Every young person craves that. There's this youthful exuberance, there's a lot of energy. So a lot of things could be used to turn on that energy. For example, a lot of individuals have said that whenever they went mountain climbing, that when they get to the peak of the mountain, the kind of surge they feel of adrenaline, and like it's very good, and they invest a lot of time in that. Some people it's exercise and gymming. For some people it's sports. For some people it's music. And some music actually fuels drug use. So music has to be deliberate. The kind of music has to be deliberate. For some people, it's arts. So it's to find out what exactly are this person's interests. Is there a way I can help this individual to get invested, to get enveloped by this interest, provide accurate information about what this is, and provide also a listening ear, non-judgmental ear, because a number of individuals who experiment with substance use may not go up to being harmful use. Not everybody who experiments goes on to harmful use. So if, for example, you are available and unfortunately one of your children had experimented with something and was open to tell you, and you bring him in and help him understand, not judging, but not also condoning the use, because it's condoning it, you're not helping, so helping the patient to understand, the individual to understand, okay, I'm here for you, but this is not in your best interest, and all. That's one of the ways to to help them at that phase. But unfortunately, I don't have the magic bullet. I don't have the one answer. I don't think it's a one shoe fits all. I think there are different factors that make people more likely to use substance. There are many factors that perpetuate the use. There are many factors that that precipitate the use in individuals. Even personality types of individuals could make them more likely to use. Some personality types could make them more prone to use than other personality types. So, and a lot of these factors are modifiable. That we can do something about them, but a lot of these factors are also not modifiable. There's little or nothing we can do about it. I don't know if I've been helpful, but that's my one sense.
No, I appreciate that. You actually did answer some of my questions, and I just want to thank you guys for hosting this, because, as a mother, I'm divorced, and ever since my husband left, I've noticed that my child has just gotten very emotional and very withdrawn, just not the same that he was when my husband was around. And I think that maybe that's really what's at the core of all of these drug abused children, is that they're struggling because they don't have a father in their lives. They don't have a man, like a real man. They have all these men that feel like they need to be emotional and share, and or maybe they're not even around. And so again, thank you guys, and I hope to see more men starting to stand up and speak the truth.
Thank you very much, Kerry, for your contributions, questions, and intervention. We appreciate your coming around to join the conversation today. Let's quickly take you now. Silo Soy, I guess I pronounced that well. Please, can you unmute yourself? And in 30 seconds, time is running against us. Let's hear from you. After you, and then I'll come to Dr. Kolo Jonah. Please go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to get the host and co-host opinion on whether you think the lack of a father in the household is what contributes mostly to drug abuse and things like that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Dr. Kashi, please, over to you.
So I think in substance use problems, like many other concerns like that similar, there's really no cause-effect relationship. So we have risk factors. So we have predisposition. So we've got factors that, because if it was a cause-effect relationship, for example, if I've got some bugs in my system, then I'm infected. It's different from substance use. So you could have two individuals, even in the same household, that are exposed to the same social circumstance, but one would use substance and the other would not. And the truth is that it's difficult, to say with certainty that this is the reason why this individual. But like I said, there's a very strong link between social deprivation and the use of drugs. Social deprivation, I mean unemployment, I mean homelessness, I mean poverty, I mean lack of social capital, lack of social networks, lack of family involvement. Those have been identified as predisposing factors that make individuals more likely to use substances than others, factors that could actually precipitate use in some individuals, and factors that could perpetuate the use of these substances in other individuals. But unfortunately there's no cause-effect relationship, so there's no way to say, all right, because if this person is exposed to this, then this person gets this. It's different from saying, okay, for example, if somebody gets bitten by a tick that carries a Borrelia burgdorferi bug, for example, you say, oh, if this person gets bitten by this tick and gets infected by this bug, then this person has Lyme's disease. That's different, but with this kind of concerns, there's no cause-effect relationship. So these factors, you're very correct in saying that they may actually contribute. They may actually contribute to the development, to the formation of substance use problems in the individual, but it's not a cause-effect relationship, because you have some individuals who have also been exposed to that who don't develop that. But if an individual who has developed that, and you identify in their discussion that this is one of the factors, then that will also form part of your discussion on how to help the person through it. I mean, a lot of people are also battling with childhood trauma. I mean, some individuals, the first time they open up about childhood abuse, childhood problems, is at therapy. So all these things cannot be swept under the carpet. So what we try to do is, rather than identify its cause-effect relationship, we try to identify the risk factors, the predisposing, precipitating, and perpetuating factors, in order to help form a care plan, how do we work around this? How do we provide innovative solutions? How do we provide realistic and achievable framework to help this individual cope with this life stressor? This life stressor that has been thrown to him, because we need to understand that we don't all have the same psychological reserve. So we don't all have the same level of resilience. So while some individuals are able to, bounce back after, an insult or an assault, some other individuals are not able to. So let's quit this mentality of asking individuals, okay, brace up, be a man up. Who says that? That's not it's not logical. So if I'm a man and I've been through trauma, who defines how I should respond, or how I should react? So it's important to help individuals identify those factors and help them to manage or cope with them, because some of them it can be coped with. For example, some poverty, homelessness, unemployment, those ones can be worked on, solutions can be given. But for example, death of a loved one, sexual abuse or physical abuse in the past, they cannot really be erased, but you can help individuals through things like trauma-focused, TBT, to help them to actually truly begin the process of healing and begin the process of coping, begin the process of reorientating their minds, about this sort of things. I don't know if I was helpful in any way.
No, that was very helpful. Thank you for the answer.
Okay, thank you very much. We're glad you got some help there.
Did his mic cut out, or is that me?
Okay, thank you. We appreciate your being part of Kolo. Dr. Kolo, please unmute yourself and let's
Okay, thank you, Dr. Obafemi, for giving me the opportunity to speak here. Thank you so much, Dr. Achi, for that wonderful presentation. Even though I was in and out, I was able to get a lot of information.
Sorry, I can barely hear you. Sorry.
Yeah, Dr. Kolo, are you using an earpiece? You are sounding distant.
Now.
Okay, yeah, better.
Okay. Yeah, I said I was in and out, but I was able to get a lot of information from the speaker. So Thank you so much for Dr. Kachi for speaking to us and for educating us. But one important thing I pick from your delivery is that prevention is better than care and treatment, which I think everybody will agree with. The cost of care and treatment is always enormous. And we've seen cases where the entire family savings has gone into treating a drug addict. Now, the cost of prevention is very simple. And all it requires is self-denial and discipline, which I think forms part of the coping skills. Now, talking about the Gen Z children, because I believe that the whole conversation still borders on the Gen Z children. But I also want to say that we do not have Gen Z children. What we have, in my opinion, is Gen Z problems. And these problems include drugs, sexual abuse, and so on. Some time ago, I heard Pastor David Oyedepo Jr. said, and he said there are no nowadays children. He said what we have is nowadays problems. So if you have them as Gen Z children, they end up giving us Gen Z problems. And I also believe that we don't have new model of children. All children are still the same, born, naked from the time immemorial and, till eternity. So we do not have Gen Z children, like I said. What we have is Gen Z problems. So, and I believe that Gen Z problems also require Gen Z solution, which I think is not available anywhere. Now, coming down to our African culture, many of us, or some of us rather, we are raised on African cultural values. And it really worked for us because, like I said, some of us were brought up in communities where everyone's child was the child of the community. But now, today, where are those values? Those African cultural values on which we are raised? I believe that many of those values have either been modernized or adulterated. Now, in those days, children hear only few voices: the voice of the parents, the voice of the teachers, and possibly the elders in the society. But today, they hear the whole world, a whole lot of voices. They hear the whole world. They have the television, they have their friends, they have their social media, they have the social media, which involves TikTok, Facebook, and so on. And each of these components talk to them, and they give them conflicting information and ideas. And at the end, what happens? They end up being confused. Now, they also see conflicting images. They see the good, the bad, and the ugly. And largely because the bad and the ugly images always look illusionary more attractive than the good and the bad, which they see, they often require self-denial and discipline to follow the good images. They easily opt for the bad and the ugly images, which is easier to copy. Now, from the things they watch and hear, I believe there are always forces that control them to do the things they do not ordinarily want to do. And these forces control them beyond their own choices. They have their choices, but because they watch these things, they hear a lot of conflicting. They get a lot of conflicting information and ideas from the things they watch and hear. They end up not being able to. They are not always subjected to their own choices. Rather, they are being forced to do the things beyond their control. Now, how can we help them? We can help them by controlling them, because the parents buy the gadgets for them. So we can control the types of gadgets we buy for them. And we can also control how they use these gadgets. For instance, in Nigeria, we have some private universities, and they control the use of these gadgets within the university system or within the campus. So we can also start from home by controlling the way they use these gadgets.
Now, I also want to say that we need more drug prevention and treatment professionals in Nigeria and perhaps in the larger African country. But in my own humble observation, I discovered that the more professionals we have, the more drug problem we have. I may be wrong, but if this is correct, then we need to go back to the drawing board and review, our strategic prevention and treatment and plans. Possibly we could inculcate some of these African values in the way we could try to prevent drug abuse among our youth. Now, for instance, when you put a Toyota Piston in a Honda car, that Honda car may malfunction. That is if it works at all. So we must learn in Africa in trying to prevent drugs, putting the round peg in the right hole. Now, finally, I want to suggest, because like last Friday, someone suggested that, a lot of times we come here, we talk a lot of grammar. Yeah, it's good to talk here because we educate ourselves, we educate the society, and we educate people. And I believe that via this platform, a lot of people have been put off drugs, and people who even have the intention to go into drugs have been prevented from taking drugs. But I want to suggest, Dr. Babafemi, as much as we speak here, we can also go further. We can take a step further to identify and reach out to schools where privileged children are, because most of these privileged children are more susceptible to drug abuse than others who are not privileged. So we can identify and reach out to them in schools, particularly their parents, maybe during the parents-teachers associations, and we can just speak to them for just 10 minutes. And possibly we could do this once in every quarter. Maybe we could identify schools in Abuja here, Port Harcourt, Lagos, as far as we can be able to do that. It's just a humble suggestion, and I think if it's good to go, we can maybe start sometime next month or thereabout. These are just my humble submission. Thank you for giving me the opportunity, Dr. Gwafemi. Over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kolo, for that. Dr. Kachi, would you want to speak to any aspect of his intervention?
No, that's fine.
Okay, then I'll go to our DM now and probably take the last contribution, or the last, I think I have a number of them, but I saw one that I don't know whether last week, I don't know whether this question came up, but then I'm seeing it again. The boomers saw the legalization of coffee. Now, what is the fear of, is it the fear of faith of marijuana legalization in the Gen Z? Dr. Kachi, can you get a meaning out of that question? I'm not so clear about what the person is trying to.
Yes. I think I understand what's going on. Like I said, there's been a craze around legalizing some of these substances, not just cannabis. I mean, a whole lot of these substances. With increasing liberalization and liberalization, people want to get. People ask for more liberty and more freedom. I'm my own boss. I have the right to do whatever I want to do, and the rest of it. I'm going to just handle it from one angle, and I think this is my personal opinion. So you can always disagree with me. I think that first of all, even if all these substances are legalized, they will still remain a public health concern. For example, alcohol is legal, but the highest cause of morbidity and mortality, of all the substances is, I think alcohol is high up there. But it's legal, you don't need you just need in fact, you can even get it anywhere, almost everywhere in Nigeria, but you just need an ID that shows you're above 18 to get it all over the world. So it's legal, but it's legal doesn't mean that it doesn't cause problem. We need to understand that everybody, although everybody is saying something, although everybody wants something, it doesn't make it right. So if, for example, I can see from the Mr. Babafemi's DP, his tie is red, and we are a lot on this space now. And I ask everybody, let's vote. Is Mr. Babafemi's tie red? Is it green? Is it yellow? And in the end, yellow has the highest number of votes. It means that we would agree based on consensus that the tie is yellow. But our agreement based on democracy or whatever it is, does it make the tie yellow? No, the tie is red. So these substances, these psychoactive substances that have a way of altering the way we think, the way we feel, the way we act, even altering our whole personalities, are still a public health concern today as they were yesterday. So whether they are legal, whether they are legalized or they are not legalized, is more of a political, and is more a political decision than it's a medical decision. So I'm not a politician. So I'm a health practitioner. So based on public health point of view, whether or not it is legalized, is still a source of concern. It's still a cause. It's still a problem. It's still a problem. With use. So don't get it wrong. Alcohol is legal, cigarettes are legal, but does it? So that's my own point of view. I think the way it is going, at some point in the world, I will not be surprised if some of these substances are become legal. But we need to understand that. I mean, see, this I would end by this line. I'm not going to say anything more than that. Somebody says, I think it's Paracelsus, if I'm not mistaken, it says the difference between a poison, a drug, and a poison is in the dose. So even medications that are very helpful to individuals in the right proportion, when they are abused, when they are not used in the way they should be used, they become poisons. So that's all I will say as I end. So whether they are legalized or not legalized, I think it's a political decision, and I think it may happen eventually at some point in the next 100 years or something. I don't know, but would it remain a public health concern? I think I would say I think so. So I think that's what's most important for me, from my point of view. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Once again, Dr. Kachi, you've done excellently well. I have no doubt by the time I reached out to you that indeed you will perform beyond expectation, and that's exactly what you have done, because I have listened to you a number of times on this platform. I also think Noretta, who actually suggested that we should make Gen Z a 3-part series, I think I'll try to reach out to her. Thank God Dara is on this, but I think I'll try to reach out to her after now to see how we can get her to let's even hear from these people themselves. So maybe we'll pair Dara with another of our guests next week. I think that would be a very interesting conversation. I'll reach out to Dara after now. Thank you once again, Dr. Kashi, for your time and for that brilliant presentation. Thank you for the time again to respond to all the questions, all the interventions. I definitely do have, 2 quotes, top my takeaways from this conversation today. One is, it's easier to stay off drugs than to get off drugs. I think we should also take this away. It's easier to stay off drugs than to get off drugs. The 2 key words there: stay off, then get off. They are that really strike me, and I think that's something I would love to keep repeating so that people can understand what that means. It's easier to stay off drugs than to get off drugs. Then another one, it's untreated drug abuse may destroy your health, life, relationship, finances, and more. Again, untreated drug abuse may destroy your health, life, relationship, finances, and more. So what it means is, the first one is telling us about just stay out of it, stay away, stay far away from drug abuse. And the second one is saying, okay, even if you are in it, please get help. quickly, because if you don't get help, if you don't treat it, you may end up destroying your health, life, relationship, finances, and more. Thank you very much for, everyone who has been part of this conversation today. Next week, by the grace of God, the same time, 3 p.m. local time. Let me quickly, John Ogunjimi, thank you for coming around. I'm not sure I acknowledged you before. We have quite a number of people anyway. It's difficult for me, especially that I'm operating from on Twitter. We have several others who are joining us via YouTube and Facebook. I will appreciate all of you. Thank you for being part of the conversation. And by the grace of God, would come up with some another related issue next week, so that we can, like Loretta suggested, extensively exhaust. Do justice to this. And Dr. Kashi has never or has not disappointed us today. Let me again thank every member of my team, those that have been part, who have been assisting from the other end, Shidi Francis, Mahmoud Bamidele, and the rest. Thank you guys. I appreciate. Again, my name is Femi Babafemi, and I'll remain here. And till next week, I would like to say, do have a wonderful evening and enjoy a great weekend. Over to you, Mahmoud, and the others over there. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, sir. And as you rightly pointed out, this brings us to the end of the program. For more information about the agency, our listeners can always visit our website and our social media handles.